Joining us now is the Attorney General of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli, also running, of course, for the office of Governor. Mr. Cuccinelli, how are you today?
Doing well. A little wet, but I'm doing well.
Yeah, well, we're all going to get rained on today. Okay, look, let's dispatch with this little bit of information, then we'll get on to the other things you want to talk about. E.W. Jackson is the GOP nominee to run for lieutenant governor. He has suggested that you encouraged him to run, first of all. Then he said, actually, here on this program, that there is no daylight between his positions and yours. So my question is, do you embrace his candidacy, or would you prefer to be judged independently?
Oh, no, I absolutely want to be judged independently, and that's the way Virginia voters operate. Is they have a history of making decisions one office at a time, and EW is going to have to introduce himself individually to the rest of Virginia, something that I did in 2009 as Attorney General, and frankly that I'm doing again running for governor. It is different for different offices, but there's no question that we've got to get over the line, each of us one at a time.
But he says there's no daylight between your positions and his. Do you agree?
Well, frankly, I don't know whether that's true or not. I mean, I take my other ticket mate, Mark Obenshain, who's running for Attorney General. He's a super lawyer, and I sat next to him in the Senate for 6 years. Well, I sat there while Mark cast about 15,000 votes over 6 years. I have a pretty good idea of where Mark is on most issues. I really just have never had that kind of experience with EW, so I just don't know the answer to that.
All right, Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli is our guest, and I wanted to ask you, first of all, about the big news you made with the IRS this week. You know, the IRS is in the news for a lot of bad reasons, and you actually have a pretty good success story over them. You first won this settlement with Abbott Pharmaceuticals over some fraudulent activity they had with Medicaid, except then the IRS ended up owing you a lot of money over this, and they wouldn't pay up until you sort of pressed them. How does this work?
We had the largest healthcare fraud case ever investigated by a state. It was $1.5 billion case that was finalized last October. Virginia has the largest and second largest healthcare fraud cases ever investigated by a state. And what happens when you're the lead investigator is part of the criminal penalty is set aside for what's called an asset forfeiture, which is money distributed to the law enforcement agencies that conducted the investigation. Well, because of the size of this fraud result, Virginia was due somewhere in the order of $100 to $125 million. Well, that money was delivered by the criminal defendant, Abbott Pharmaceuticals, on October 2nd. It's been sitting in federal accounts since October 2nd. And the only two things necessary for that money, Virginia's share of it, to be delivered are, one, the IRS had to fill out a 2-page form correctly. And they've done this hundreds of times. They participate in all sorts of investigations.
Yeah.
They had to fill a 2-page form out, and then the Department of Treasury had to decide on the allocations. Well, the IRS sat on it. When they did turn it in, it was done wrong. The only time we know of, or that I believe Treasury knows of them doing it wrong. I mean, it's 2 pages, 6 questions. It's easy. It's a no-brainer. And they sat on their hands, and that was blocking Virginia from getting over $100 million of asset forfeiture money to use to protect our police and our sheriff's deputies, and, of course, protecting the people who, in turn, protect us. So
yeah.
We finally, after much patience, went public with that, and it took a number of hours for them to say, okay, the money's coming. Now, the money's not here yet, but as you said, we've had a success. We've at least hit step one. They've declared a number and said they're going to send it, but they've also added a whole bunch of new rules that have never been part of asset forfeiture for us before. We've done this many times before.
All right.
So things we're through one hurdle, but like I said, when the check arrives and we get to start buying bulletproof vests for our police and buying vehicles that they need and doing training for their interaction with the mentally ill, then I'll breathe easy. But we're through one step. We have another one yet to go.
What about your opponent in the gubernatorial race, Terry McAuliffe? Are you guys going to get together for debates?
Well, we offered 15, and they said, oh, that's ridiculous. Nobody's ever done 15. I said, well, it's only ridiculous if you say no. I mean, I was on the radio in Danville yesterday, and they really want to debate. And I grew up in Fairfax. I love Fairfax in Northern Virginia. I live in Prince William, and I've lived in Arlington. But I think the people in Danville are just as important as the people in Fairfax.
Yeah.
And I think the people in Harrisonburg and Winchester and Abingdon and Roanoke and McAuliffe refuses to go to any of those places and debate. You know what's really amazing is so far he has refused to go to Hampton Roads to debate, the second largest population center in Virginia. The only debates that are scheduled right now are the Fairfax Chamber debate in September and the bar debate in July, and that is it.
Ken
That's
Cuccinelli,
it.
he's very busy raising money right now and running television.
Good at it.
In fact, I saw this TV ad keeps running on an endless loop locally here, and he features Governor Bob McDonnell in his ad. It almost looks like it's his running mate. Have you seen this?
I have seen it, and you know, Terry's ads are always kind of interesting. And I mean, his first ad had his most recent business success, which was his asphalt business when he was 14. And you know, a lot of his rationale for why he should be governor is because, hey, look, I ran these companies and created jobs, and turns out none of that was true. It was just all false. So all they're doing is they're being very negative, and they haven't rolled out any policies. We've rolled out a jobs-creating tax policy and energy policy. You know, we're being very substantive and positive, and that's what debates are about.
Well, we're going to leave it.
Your vision against mine, and he refuses to do it.
We got to leave it right there.
We're happy to host that debate here, though.
Yeah,
by the way.
have it coming right here.
Bring
Well,
it in.
send out the invitation, guys.
We have microphones, and we're not afraid to use them.
Thanks, Ken Cuccinelli.